And welcome back on the Good Morning Artesia radio show. Captain James Moore of the Eddy County Sheriff's Department joining us here for Good Morning Artesia. I guess the sheriff is out of town today.
Yes, he's out of town.
Out of town, so we got you. That's exactly how Sheriff said it.
You'll have to do with me.
Yes. So that's okay. You're just back in the country.
Yes, I am.
Had a little bit of a trip overseas.
Glad to be back.
Can you talk anything about your experience or what you went through? Or
Oh, no, I'm just glad to be back.
Glad to be back. Was it hot where you were?
When I left, it was 125.
So that would be compared to what we've been having this summer. That's hot. We've had we had a little brief period of 100-degree plus weather, but it was 88 yesterday, going to be 90 today.
Yes, we're going back to the old days.
What have we done? Is it because of the windmills and the solar panels that the weather has cooled off? Is that why?
No, it's because of COVID.
Oh.
Yes. It's on quarantine.
That's right, because if the COVID comes out, we need it to be it's just as good as an excuse as any, right?
I know. That's what they blame everything on now.
Yeah, is on COVID. Well, let's talk about what's going on at the Sheriff's Department, some of the things that you guys are dealing with.
Well, we're hiring.
Okay.
So if anyone's out there motivated and wants a good career, go onto the Eddy County website and apply.
Okay. Do you have to have prior experience, or do you have to be certified, or?
Right now, we're hiring certified. We just closed out. We were hiring for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And we just closed that out because we have enough applicants right now that we think that we'll be able to fill the uncertified positions.
Okay. So if you are certified or have prior law enforcement experience, then that would be the qualifications that you have to apply right now. That's good. I know it's been a challenge for all law enforcement agencies all over the state to try to find enough people to fill positions.
Yes, it's always a challenge. Either the political climate has something to do with it, or they make more money working out in the oil field. It's hard to compete with the private sector because we're always behind. We have to wait for gross receipts and everything to come in before we can determine our budget and if there's going to be pay raise. So we're always a little bit behind, but the good thing about us is we're consistent, and it's not feast or famine like it is in the oil field.
Sure. You get on and you do your job, then you can make a career out of it.
That's right.
Advancement opportunities and retirement and all that.
And that's why we have openings. We have a lot of people retiring.
Okay. They're saying enough with this. I'm going to take the retirement and go fish or something like that. Do that. Yeah, that might be kind of interesting to think about. I haven't thought about that. Retiring and going fishing.
I wouldn't know what to do.
I think I'd be in the same boat. Let's talk a little bit about some of the crime issues that the Sheriff's Department is dealing with out in the county. Is it pretty much similar to what it's been along the property theft and things like that, or have there been some other things that guys are dealing with?
I mean, there's always going to be theft. We haven't noticed any real spikes in certain things. You hate to talk like it's normal because, these are people's lives that are affected every time something happens to them. They're victims of a crime, and it dramatically affects their life, and I don't want to downplay that, but we haven't seen any major spikes or trends that have really caused great concern.
Mm-hmm. But property theft is one of the items that the Sheriff's Department always deals
especially
with.
Out in rural areas where, there's things sitting out there, no one around it, and, it's tempting to some people.
Yeah. Well, folks that do put up security cameras and get footage, how helpful is that kind of stuff?
It can be very helpful. We've made a lot of cases off of the security footage. When I first started, camera systems were so expensive, no one had them. And, you would go out and you would have to look for tire impressions, and, you get a tire impression off of a pickup. Well, now you have to find a pickup, with that tire, and the likelihood of that was slim to none.
Yeah.
And you would do everything you could, but with the cameras, we've made a lot of cases, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. And so once somebody you on an investigation find out that there's the possibility there could be some footage, does that footage then become the property of the sheriff's department, or how is that handled, that evidence?
Yeah, it's seized. It's it becomes evidence.
And so, but how long does that stay?
It depends
on a hard drive somewhere.
Well, normally, a lot of agencies do put it on a hard drive or a server, actually. We don't do that. We put it on a disk, and we put it in evidence on a disk because servers are so expensive. And then if you ever have a problem with the server, you could end up losing all of that. So we've opted to go with more of an antiquated system right now, and we put things on a disk and we place it into evidence.
Okay.
So
that's probably paid off on a number of occasions where, like you said, there's been a server problem or a computer problem or access problem, and you can always go to the file cabinet,
right,
open up the drawer, pull out the file, and look, here's the video or the pictures or whatever that you need. Old school, right?
Old school sometimes is better.
Sometimes it is better. What about drugs? I know drugs are always a problem. Are there different drugs that are kind of more out there now than have been in the past, or?
Well, fentanyl is taking more of it's more noticeable. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous, and that's one of the reasons why it's really a lot of attention is paid to it. It's dangerous to the people who use it. It's dangerous to anyone who handles it. It's pretty scary stuff.
And you've seen the department's seen a lot more of that in and around Eddy County.
We've seen an increase over the years. But heroin is the one thing that made a big jump there for a while, and it's still out there, heroin, and there's still meth out there. I mean, I guess it's kind of like buying allergy medicine. There's all different kinds. And
wow.
Your choice, I guess.
I wouldn't know. What are you seeing as far as the policies that you're working on and that the county's working on and the cities are working on with the marijuana now that it's going to be, well, now that it is legal for some people to have it, most people, I guess, depends on the adult status, and they can have plants.
Yeah, there's really no policy for us. We just follow statute.
Okay.
So we don't file federal cases. Now, we do have like the drug task force, and we work in cooperation with federal agencies and so forth, and we have certain deputies that can file federal charges, but for the most part, deputies do not file federal charges. So we don't focus on the federal law.
Okay.
If we come across a violation of federal law, then we would contact the appropriate authority. So we basically operate within state statute. So once that statute is gone, we no longer enforce it.
So in the case of the marijuana.
Right. There's really no policy change. Our drug dogs were retired. So we're not having to worry about, is this going to be a false positive because now there's a marijuana hit? We don't have to worry about that. It's just the big thing now is going to be looking for impaired driving.
And you've already got enough of a challenge with the alcohol impaired driving. There's other drugs that impair driving, and now this is to the list. In your experience, has marijuana influenced drivers been an issue or a problem?
Absolutely.
It has
yes,
been.
It has.
Okay.
And the worst thing about it is getting it through the court, because even though the statute mentions driving while impaired on drugs or alcohol, it's more focused on alcohol. So you have a blood alcohol content of 0.08 or higher. There's really not anything that clearly defines drug. So you're going off of why did you stop them, the poor driving, to show that they're impaired by the, and field sobriety testing is set up for alcohol, not for drugs.
Right.
I mean, some of them will interchange, but it's a challenge. It's going to be interesting to see how the state,
if they address that, or if the legislature addresses that.
Right. I mean, like, for instance, when you are arrested for DWI or, for alcohol, you lose your license. But if you're arrested for drugs, how are they going to determine? It's just going to be interesting to see how all this unfolds.
Sure. Because at least with the alcohol, there's the blood alcohol level.
Right.
So whether it could be a matter of opinion as to whether or not somebody is driving impaired or not.
So it's going to see how, and that's more of a civil issue, not a criminal. So it's going to see how they define that and determine how they're going to deal with that.
Yeah. Because you could see somebody swerving around. They could be texting.
Oh, absolutely. Or adjusting the radio or...
Well, you got controls on the steering wheel for your radio.
I have an old truck.
It's not that far away. Besides, once you put it on the radio station, you shouldn't have to change it, right?
Well, if you get outside the listening area.
There you go. No, I understand. But so you see somebody swerving and they were changing the radio station or they were doing something like that. Is that cause for initializing a stop?
Right.
And then what happens from that?
Well, when you stop them, then you start your investigation to determine why they were swerving. And then if you detect an odor of alcohol or, the slurred speech, the typical, if you're drunk or what have you, or impaired, that's what we look for.
Yeah.
Try to figure out why the driving was like that. But
now you've added the, marijuana influence has been there.
Right.
But now how it's treated because of in New Mexico being legal to possess, that's going to be a challenge for law enforcement. Yes. Has the state been coming forward and saying, all right, here's the training programs, here's the...
I think you already know the answer to this.
I think that's no. We had to get it legal first, and then we'll come back and we'll fix all these other issues with it. So that's going to be an interesting challenge, because there may be something that someone is stopped for or arrested for, but then the marijuana thing may cause a problem with whether or not the case proceeds forward or it's thrown out of court or something like that. So I'm surprised they're not coming and helping you guys out at the state level. That seems kind of a shock to me.
I think they're all partaking.
That's true. Did they ever work their way through the body camera concerns? I know the sheriff had some concerns over how that whole thing was implemented and what the results were going to be. I know the Eddy County Sheriff's Department, you guys have had the body cams for a while.
There's still a couple of issues that need to be worked through on the state level. Some of the legislation that would have addressed that was shot down, and rightfully so, because it had a bunch of bad stuff in it. But for the most part, we're operating within the state guidelines.
Okay.
There's just some gray area that we feel needs to be defined.
Okay. And hopefully, well, I don't know if there's not going to be a new legislature this year because the election's not till next year. So, got to deal with the same people again.
Oh, I know.
One more time, and all of that before something may or may not change. That's kind of crazy. There's been a lot of talk. I know in Eddy County, there's no real concerns over defunding any of the law enforcement agencies. The public support for law enforcement in Eddy County is pretty strong.
Yes, we're blessed in that area. We really are.
So you don't have those issues to worry about. I wonder if you hear from law enforcement officers from other parts of the country that think about coming to New Mexico.
As you know, it's a tough move to move out here. If you're not from here or have a connection to here, you don't wake up one morning and think, I'm going to move to southeast New Mexico.
This is true.
You don't. So most people that are from those agencies that are being defunded, you find that they're not completely defunding them. So they're still paying them. They still have a salary. They're taking overtime. They're taking vehicles, equipment, or they'll take, like, for instance, we have a drug task force that is partially funded by the federal government and partially funded by us. They'll cut programs like that. So they're not just going in and saying we're going to lay off everybody with the agency. They would have like a $30 million budget, and they're cutting them back by $8-9 million. That's been the trend so far. I don't know right now of any agency that's been completely defunded where they're not paying their officers. I don't, and there may be some out there. I just don't know of it. So we're not getting a lot of interest in that area from officers that are looking for jobs.
Well, if that changes, that may change that situation, but I think some of that is going to go back the other way in some parts of the country.
And there are a lot of people that are retiring. They're just said, I've had enough of this, I'm out. And by that is reducing, and salary savings is what it's referred as, and that makes up a lot of it too. Because a lot of times they just won't hire to replace that person.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've seen a little bit of that in this part of the country when the oil prices went down and people got concerned over revenues. Well, then COVID hit and really shut down the economy for a lot of folks. And so a lot of cities and municipalities had to put hiring freezes on and not hire folks. But they tended to at least say publicly, we're going to keep our police, we're going to keep our fire departments staffed. If there's make cuts in other areas. Is the Eddy County Sheriff's or your staffing numbers, they didn't get decreased?
No, they did not.
Okay.
The only time we ever had an issue was a while back when oil really just completely dropped. And we had 3 open positions and they just froze them. Mm-hmm. So we didn't lay anybody off or anything like that. We just didn't hire those open positions until revenues came back up.
But that only happened that one time, as far as your experience has been.
Right. And we're fortunate. The county really is very fiscally responsible, and they are also responsible in how they budget.
So Eddy County has not had the issues that some other places in New Mexico or even in the country have had. With
right. I guess our crystal ball is a little clearer than the state's.
Well, the one with the state has snow in it.
Yeah.
You shake it and it snows. This one here is an actual crystal ball, I think.
But marijuana is going to fix everything.
That's what I've been told.
Yes.
That
have you driven through Colorado lately?
I have not.
I'm telling you, you'll feel like you went rounds with some boxer and taking all the kidney punches, and the roads are absolutely miserably horrible.
Worse than New Mexico?
That makes our roads look great, and I just can't wait till we get those roads.
Well, we're used to crappy roads here.
Yeah, our roads actually look good compared to theirs.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, because for many, many years, you knew when you got into Texas.
Yes.
Because the roads cleared up, the shoulders got wide, the
speed limit went up. The turn lanes appeared, or the passing lanes appeared, and it's like, oh, we're in Texas now. But there have been quite a bit of improvements in New Mexico, although it's taken a long time for this 82. Oh, I know. When I came back, I was like, wow, they've actually made improvements in the last 6 months.
Yeah, no, whoever's got the contract now has really been.
Yeah, I was very pleased.
Moving along to get things opened up. I know some people have been scratching their heads at the little bumps in the middle of the road going in and out of Riverside over here. I wonder who the first one to take out the sign is going to be. Because they got the bump and then this divided highway sign there, and do that. So, folks, you mentioned earlier that you do have some openings on the Sheriff's Department,
Yes.
and you mentioned that they go to the website to apply. What are some basic qualifications that somebody needs to have if that's a career move that they want to make?
They need to be a citizen.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have a high school education or equivalent. For the certified position, you either have to be certified in the state of New Mexico or in another state that will transfer over.
Okay.
In good standing, and that is a heartbeat.
Well, it's got to be a little more background check than that.
No, that's a good standing. They have to, they have
Yeah.
to be in good standing. No felony convictions and no misdemeanor convictions of certain type, like domestic violence. And everybody has problems in their life, and some people, especially when they're younger, have problems. And we realize that people are human, and so people will have issues in their background, and we can overlook some things. And there has to be a period of time has to have passed, and you have to show that you've learned from your mistake and you've corrected it and have lived a good life from then on.
Yeah.
But
Get a second chance, I guess,
Yes.
for some people. What about tattoos? I know some people in the Sheriff's Department that have tattoos. So.
yes. If you made a mandate of no tattoos, you would not hire anybody.
I know. It's just, it's kind of a common thing now. And did you say what the minimum age is? It's
21 years.
21 years
Yes.
of age is the minimum in order to be able to apply. So you start out by going to the county website. That's where you begin
Yes,
the
you
process.
go to the county website, you do the application, and once your application comes in, we'll be calling you
and start the process.
to start the process.
Yeah. You mentioned you have to be a citizen. There's been a lot in the news about the migration of hundreds of thousands of people coming across our southern border. What, in your department, what have you seen coming through Eddy County? Is it any different than it's been in the past, or?
I haven't seen any anomaly in it. They're not putting them on buses and dropping them off here. That's been the big issue that a lot of these places have, like Uvalde and they'll
think
load them in a
McAllen
bus,
is another one.
right? And they'll take them and just drop them off in the middle of the town. And then all these people are just coming out. They're hungry.
They haven't been properly screened for whatever health issues they may be dealing with.
Exactly.
Things like that. Yeah.
And then the municipality and the county are then left to deal with it. And we haven't seen that here, very fortunately.
And there's really, from a law enforcement standpoint, there's not a whole lot, or is there anything that a state or a county or a city police department can do in that regard?
No, there's nothing we can do in that regard. When the federal government drops them off and gives them a court date and allows them to be in the country, there's nothing we can do.
Wow. It's got to be frustrating for a lot of folks because I know you want, Sheriff's Department, Police Department, you want interagency cooperation. You want to kind of know what's going on in most cases. And in many of these cases, it sounds like nobody knows there's no communication going on. Nobody really knows what's going on.
Well, I don't think they want to communicate.
Well, I know that. That's an obvious.
It's
on
like
that.
when they brought that housing facility here, they didn't ask us.
No. Now they did have press conferences,
Well, yeah, they did,
and
but they sure didn't ask.
no, there were a lot of requests to get information from them as to
Yes.
what they were doing, and I think just by continually asking questions, it kind of became a little irritating, and maybe that helped in moving that on to another facility. So I guess people just have to keep an eye out for that stuff. I feel badly for some of these towns down in Texas.
Oh, absolutely.
What was this? It was on the news. I think it was McAllen. They've had 7,000 people with COVID that have just been dropped off in their town in the last few weeks. That, like you said, the town or the county or the city has had to deal, whatever healthcare system is there that's probably already stressed and overtaxed with this situation. Now, here's a bunch more people you're going to have to try to help.
Right, that are spreading the virus.
Mm-hmm. But we have to wear masks.
Not yet.
Well, it depends on where you go.
Depends on where you go.
That's true. That is different. Well, Captain Moore, is there anything else that you'd like to cover or talk about today?
Well, we appreciate everybody that came out and visited our booth at the fair. The fair went off without a hitch, and that was a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys were there. You were up in the community building, weren't you?
Yes.
In the front building. Yeah, people weren't worried that you were there. They were happy, came by, said hi.
Well, I didn't know anybody that didn't.
That's
apparently the people that didn't want to see us would have walked out.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Pretty much everybody that came by was positive. It was good.
That's good. That and it was a good fair this year.
It was nice to be able to have some normalcy.
Yep, it sure was. Hopefully that will continue.
Yes.
Here as we work through this latest spike and what's going on with the Delta variant. I really think the people that name these variants are fans of either Revenge of the Nerds or Animal House. Because what we have, they have the Delta variant and the Lambda variant.
Lambda, yes. So is the next one going to be Lambda Lambda? And
That's right.
Lambda Lambda Lambda?
We'll have the Tri-Lambs. And then there's Omega House. I mean, we could really get carried away with all these movies. Kevin Bacon will show up, and, we'll have some fun with all that. All right. Well, Captain Moore, thank you so much for coming in. We do appreciate you filling in for the sheriff today.
Well, thank you for having us.
Is there anything else we need to talk about or
Not
cover?
that I'm aware of.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick